Welcome back, guys. Week 2 of the season is in the books, and we have conquered the Dallas Cowboys, moving our record to 2-0. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on those notifications down below. And let's get straight into talking about what happened in that last game. We knew how big of a game this was for us, and we ran away with it late by a score of 45-24. It was very competitive throughout the first half, but we just became too much for them. So let's not waste any time and dive into the story of this game. We would start with the ball, and that would of course mean our quarterback, Kyler Murray, would take the reins. And he had a solid day, throwing for 276 yards, and he did toss in a score, but he was inaccurate at times as he only connected on half of his passes, and he did throw an interception as well. We would start off slow with a 3-and-out, and that would mean we would be sending the ball to their QB and Dak Prescott. In a similar vein to Murray, he threw for just over 300 yards and tossed in 2 scores, but he would not be perfect either, as he would end up tossing 2 picks as well. We would end up trading a few 3-and-outs before Dallas got going, as they would start to focus on feeding Tony Pollard. He came away with the big-time catch for 39 yards, and he also dominated on the ground. He would finish his day with 105 yards all-purpose, and he would finish the drive off by punching in the first touchdown of the game. We would then get the ball back, and a few plays later, we would get a big momentum play from Michael Wilson, as he would bring in his sole catch of the day here, as he would beat Trayvon Diggs off the line and come away with this 38-yard bomb down the field. That would end up getting us down to the 5, and we would capitalize on the very next play, as it would be Tyson Williams who would get the ball and punch in the score to tie this game up at 7-all to cap off his 46-yard rushing day. We then moved into the second quarter, and our next big-time play would come from our superstar receiver, Hollywood Brown. As when Murray rolled out off the play action, he would put out the perfect long ball for Hollywood to get on the end to take 41 yards, and this would be the type of plays he would make whenever he touched the ball, as he would total 112 yards on just 3 catches. And a few plays later, we would trot out our rookie kicker, Nate Garfield, for his first field goal try of his young career, which he would nail to give us the 3-point lead. Then we would stall Dallas yet again, and after driving down the field, we would find Zach Ertz, our veteran tight end, in the end zone, as he makes the big play in relief of the injured Trey McBride to extend our lead to 10. Dallas would look to get back into this one, but that is when our number 2 overall pick, Michael Allison, would make the big-time play, as he flew into the backfield to drop Prescott for a loss. And this would be the perfect way to follow his 3-sack performance in his debut a week ago, as he would add on 2 TFLs as well. But they would overcome this by starting to involve Brandon Cooks. They would get him 2 impressive catches on this drive, and he took over today, as CeeDee Lamb would have a very quiet day, and he would end up picking up 7 total grabs to get over the 100-yard mark. But they would not get all the way, as Kaiser White and Zaven Collins would fly in to drop Dak the second time of this drive to force 4th down in a very clutch situation, and this would just be the beginning of Zaven Collins' incredible performance in prime time, as he would finish the day with a whopping 16 tackles, and he had some big time plays in coverage as well. The Cowboys would nail the field goal, and then when we got the ball back, we would try to take a deep shot downfield, and this is when Trayvon Diggs, their interception king, would add to his incredible highlight reel, as he picked us off with this beautiful toe drag snag, which would make his brother Stephon Diggs proud to get them the ball right back. But that would not last for long, as we would find an interception of our own, as it would be Jalen Thompson, who would crash on a sideline dump off to secure the ball, and he would take it back 31 yards for the pick 6 touchdown to put us up by 2 scores as we went into the halftime break. We would then move into the second half, and it would not take Dallas long to narrow the margin, as on the very first drive, they would go all the way down the field, and they would find Michael Gallup, as he would run a beautiful route to gain some separation and find his way across the goal line for 6, and that would be the defining play of his 87-yard effort. We would get the ball back, and just a few plays later, it would be Cordero Patterson who would cause chaos, as he would find himself wide open to get on the end of this out of the pocket throw from Murray to go to the 49-yard and then set us up on the 5. And we would then call upon none other than James Conner to take the ball and punch it into the end zone to pick up the touchdown. But he would not be done there, as he would follow that out by punching in another on the opening play of the 4th quarter, and he would find the end zone once more near the end of this game to put this one well out of reach. Now, before we get to the play that truly ended this one, we need to discuss some of Dallas's defensive standouts. Demarion Overshown did an incredible job filling in for the injured Leighton Vander Esch, and he finished the day with 9 total tackles, with just under half being solo efforts. And then the duo of Damone Clark and DeMarcus Lawrence were also very impressive. A combination of young and old playing as edge rushers, and while we did well to contain Micah Parsons, these two did end up putting together a combined 14 tackle game, with 5 of them dropping us behind the line for losses in the run game. And then, as Dak Prescott looked to put together the comeback effort late, he would meet Budda Baker as he would drive well down the field, and then Baker would make this spectacular interception, which may end up going down as the best of the year, as he dove through the arms of the intended target and came away with the game-sealing pick. We then went straight into our post-game media press conference when a reporter said, "You were able to have success against Dak Prescott and get the win this week. What went into making that happen?" And we responded saying, "Dak is a special player, but we had an excellent game plan that the team executed perfectly. Really proud of how our defense played, and with that, our entire defense has earned 2,500 XP, which will be crucial to our development." As we advance the week, we could then look at the games our division rivals put together this past week. We would start with the Rams, who would travel east to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, where they would be bested by 10. LA would get off to a hot start as they would get Cam Akers into the end zone for the opening score, and Atlanta would follow that up with a Younghoe Koo field goal to move the score to 7-3 at the end of the first. Then the Rams rookie QB would find the first passing touchdown of his career when he hit Hunter Henry for 6, but that is when Desmond Ridder would start to take over. But not because of some incredible spark of ability, but more so because of the inaccuracy of Atkins. He would end up throwing 2 interceptions across the second and third quarters to both AJ Terrell and Richie Grant respectively. And Ridder would focus his efforts to Richie James Jr. as he would find him for 2 touchdowns following those 2 takeaways, and he would find him for a third in the final quarter of play. Atkins would try to answer back as he would hit Cooper Kupp for a 30-yard score to cap off his near 100-yard performance, but Atlanta would answer right back as they would shoot clock with Bijan Robinson, who would eventually find the end zone to put them up by 10. Then the Rams would drive down to set up Brandon McManus for a 50-plus yard field goal to try and make it a 1-score game, which he would miss, and that would be the end of their chances in this one. After that, we had a tight one up in New England as the Seahawks would edge out the Pats by a singular point. Seattle would be the first on the board as Geno Smith would start his impressive day by tossing his first score to DK Metcalf to take the early lead. But then New England would start to take control of this game as they would use Ramondre Stevenson as their focus player. He would put together well over 100 yards through both the run and the pass, and it would lead to Mac Jones being able to throw 3 passing touchdowns in the final 3 quarters of play, as he would hit Max Williams for 2 of them, and he would then find the rookie Isaiah Farrell in the end zone on his only catch of the day. But the Seahawks would put together the late comeback, starting with a massive 69-yard touchdown bomb to Tyler Lockett to bring the game to 1 score. And then they would get the ball back and would hit Noah Fant in the closing moments to tie it up, pending the extra point. But instead, they would go for 2 and get it to take the win on the road. And lastly, we had the 49ers, who would welcome the Commanders, which they would best by 3. But it would be Washington who would strike first as Sam Darnold would throw his only touchdown of the day to Curtis Samuel. Then San Francisco would attempt to get back into it during the second quarter by feeding Christian McCaffrey. But they would be stalled on 3 straight drives as Brock Purdy would be sacked just as many times as teams continued to attack that left side of the line. It would be Montez Sweat, KJ Henry, and the pair of Jonathan Allen and Kyle Fuller who would be the ones to get home. And due to these sacks, they would have to settle for 3 straight field goals from Jake Moody. Then, as they entered the third quarter, Brian Robinson Jr. would take back the lead with a rushing score, but the Niner defense would start to swing this game back in another direction as Dre Greenlaw would come away with an interception, which would lead to a CMC rushing score to match, which they would follow by going for 2 and failing. The Commanders kicker and Joey Sly would nail 2 of his own field goals to take back the lead. It would be middle linebacker Fred Warner who would secure a pick-6 touchdown to give San Fran the lead back once more. They would be successful going for 2 this time, and they would hold on to this lead till the very end. After that, we saw the first version of the mock draft come through for this year, And with the Carolina Panthers projected to hold the number 1 overall pick, they look to be taking defensive end Deion Goodson out of Florida State. At number 5, our division rival Seahawks look set to take defensive tackle Rashawn Wallace out of Miami. Right behind them at 6, the Rams look to beef up their defense as well with strong safety Rashawn Nickerson. Surprisingly, the Super Bowl champion Chiefs are currently projected to sit with the 8th overall pick, and with it, take left tackle Dakota Cheeks out of California. With the 16th pick, the 49ers look to be taking cornerback Leo Manning. We are projected to get the 22nd pick, and with it, continue to add to our pass rushing depth with Amari Jones out of Texas. And as of this moment, the Falcons are also, surprisingly, projected to win it all, and with the final pick of the first round, take strong safety Stanley Swinton. We then get our first chance at player re-signing negotiations, and although there are a lot of guys with contracts expiring, we do have $148 million in cap space for next season available to use. So we would start with probably the biggest of them all, our superstar safety, Budda Baker. We know how valuable he is to us, but we also didn't want to overpay as he begins to decline with age. And so we offered him a 4-year, $68.6 million deal, averaging $10.6 million a year in salary. And he declined, saying he's starting to like the offer, but he's unsure if this team gets him the future he is looking for. So we'll just have to show him why we are eyeing multiple championships in the future. We then moved over to our number 1 corner in Marco Wilson, and at 25 years old with a lot of promise, we did not mess around as we offered him a 4-year, $20.4 million deal, averaging $2.7 million a year in salary, and he accepted, saying he is excited to sign such a great offer and to stay with the team. We then moved along to a much younger yet potentially promising piece in star corner Cam Edwards. He made a few notable plays in the preseason, and we offered the 21-year-old a 3-year, $8.1 million deal, averaging $1.8 million a year in salary, and he declined, saying the same as Baker, but in his case, I believe he is referring more so to future playing time. We then move to our offensive line in right guard Will Hernandez. We do have a promising yard guard behind him in rookie Will Wayne, but with time still needed to develop, we want to keep Hernandez around, so we offered him a 1-year deal worth $4.4 million with $2.6 million in salary, and he declined, saying that bonus offer has him questioning whether we really want him back or not. We then went back to the defense with middle linebacker Kaiser White. We've seen him really step up with the departure of Isaiah Simmons, and we ended up offering him a 3-year deal worth $13.2 million, averaging $2.2 million a year in salary, and he declined, saying he could find a better team in free agency that would match this current offer. And he doesn't love our scheme, and we're not located as close to home as he would like either. Then we had right outside linebacker Victor Dimukije, and we attempted to undercut him a bit, offering a 3-year deal worth $6.6 million, averaging $1.4 million a year in salary, and he declined, saying this was unacceptable, even when considering that he wants to continue playing here. We then moved over to our special teams by trying to re-sign our all-pro return man Andre Bocelli with a 1-year, $3.8 million deal with $2.5 million a year in salary, and he declined, saying if we commit more time, he'll commit to this team. Then we had our defensive captain Dennis Gardeck, and with the chance of him becoming a mentor with the likely retirement of Khalil Mack after this year, we offered him a 1-year, $2.8 million deal with $1.7 million in salary, and he accepted, saying he's excited to sign such a great offer to stay with the team. We then finished our negotiations by securing our punter Matt Hawk, as we offered him a 1-year deal worth $1.8 million, which he would indeed accept. So after an up and down trip to the negotiation table, we had some staff points to spend, so we moved over to the coach talent trees. And under the offensive coordinator quarterback guru tree, we purchased the 3rd and final tier of On the Move, which will boost throw on the run for quarterbacks by 3. We then checked out the news stories from around the league for this week, starting with 2 dominant rushing performances, as it was both Nick Chubb against Vegas and Dameon Pierce against Buffalo, who would put up 3 rushing touchdowns each. We also had an NFC North rivalry matchup in which Isaiah Simmons could not save the Bears as they ate a devastating 35-7 loss against the Detroit Lions. We had 2 massive injuries occur this week as the Vikings lost their superstar left tackle Christian Darrisaw, which will be a massive blow to their hopes this year. But more important to us, The 49ers' number one corner, Charvarius Ward, went down with an injury, and he has already been added to the injured reserve. And we will take a better look at that should he still be unavailable when we meet them in Week 9. On a more positive note, a draft prospect and wide receiver Rashad Monroe has flew onto a lot of teams' radars as he embraced his small school roots, not leaving through the transfer portal, and he has been carrying a massive chip on his shoulder through the first few games of the season. And we then had two massive games to look forward to, starting with the Cowboys taking on the Browns. And it'll be interesting to see if Dallas can bounce back from the tough loss we gave them as they move right along to one of the toughest defenses in the league. And then we have our upcoming game as we have a Super Bowl rematch as we travel into Arrowhead to take on the reigning world champions in the Chiefs. A mere field goal was the only thing that could separate us back in February, but this could be our best chance to get one back as they have fallen to 0-2 early this season. So let's take a look at what we have to deal with as we look to get revenge on the champs. Starting with our injury report, in our last game, we lost our lead back, Tyson Williams, as he suffered a torn labrum which will keep him out for our next 3 games. Meaning, we will be relying on the rest of our loaded running back room for our next few games. Then for KC, they will be missing a big piece on their offensive line as their star right guard Trey Smith suffered a dislocated wrist and he will be unavailable for this massive game. That means the rookie out of Michigan, Andrew Hawley, will be asked to protect against our elite pass rush, and he is going to have a tough day. But if there is any QB in the league who can overcome this, it is of course the best in the league, Patrick Mahomes. He is coming off yet another phenomenal season in which he picked up his trio of third awards in the MVP, Super Bowl championship, and Super Bowl MVP. It will be difficult to keep him in check. And when you talk about Mahomes, you can't go far without mentioning his favorite target, the future Hall of Fame tight end, Travis Kelce. Currently in his 12th season in this league, and he has been one of the greatest offensive threats the league has ever seen. And he is coming off a 122-yard receiving game a week ago in LA. Now, he will help out as a blocker as well with Smith injured, but Kansas City has some other talented guys to rely on, such as their Pro Bowl center, Creed Humphrey, and right alongside him, their Pro Bowl guard in Joe Thuney. But their defense is nothing to shy away from, starting with their best defensive player in Chris Jones. He is a dominant threat stuffing down the run and the pass game at the line, and after a 19-sack season last year, he would love to keep working his way back to that mark this week. And then backing up to the linebackers, they are captained by the 24-year-old Nick Bolton, and he is able to do a ton for this team between crashing on a ball carrier or covering a tight end. And after a 12-tackle performance last week, he wants to keep his momentum high with a good game against us. And then leading their secondary is none other than cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. He is such a dominant coverage guy, shutting down his assignment week in and week out, and he'll hope to do that against us this week. Now, the difference makers in this game may very well be Kansas City's offensive playmakers, with one of course being Isaiah Pacheco. In this offense, he doesn't get the ball as much as other running backs, but as soon as he gets the ball, every defense needs to watch out. And of course, they also have receiver Kadarius Toney. They brought him over from the Giants a year ago, and they led him to his best season in the league, and he of course was a massive part of them winning the Super Bowl against us, as he brought in 2 receiving touchdowns in that game. Now, we mentioned the Chiefs have gotten off to a rough start, losing their Week 1 game to the Browns, and then last week they suffered a second straight loss to the Los Angeles Chargers. While LA was very consistent, scoring a touchdown in every quarter, KC just couldn't get into the flow of the game, and they ended up losing by a 2-score deficit. And if we needed any other positives for us, we will be getting back Bryce Huff off the injury list, making his first appearance this season, and he will be looking to match his star-studded performance he put together in the Super Bowl. Now, looking at this overall roster, we know that this is one of the most talented teams in this league, with a completely loaded offense at all the skill positions, and they have a very good offensive line as well. And then on the defensive side, they have some incredible defensive line play with some average linebackers behind them, but their secondary is capable enough to hold down the pass game against most offenses. Knowing who we were going up against, we could then set our game plan for this upcoming matchup. Starting on defense, we are going to focus on defending the short pass. We have a talented secondary to contain the passes going deep, but we can't allow an offense this good to get away with the short throws. And then on offense, we want to counter the blitz. This pass rush is already menacing, and with them calling the 7th most blitz calls over the first 2 weeks, we need to keep the extra blockers in to pick up the pressure and give us time to make plays happen. It was then time to set our goals for this upcoming matchup. First, we want to win the turnover battle. Same thing as last week, and quite frankly, the Super Bowl, whoever wins the turnover battle in these types of games tends to take the win. Next, we want to get 300 plus offensive yards. Although this is a very tough defense, our offense has been near the top of the league, and we need to keep that momentum going with another great performance today. After that, we want to allow 24 points or less. This was the mark we kept Dallas to this week, and we saw how well this worked out for us in that one. And lastly, we want to allow 2 or less passing touchdowns. If we have any hopes of winning this, we need to keep Mahomes as quiet as possible, and hopefully we can keep him under this mark today. We then went through training for the week, and we thankfully had no injuries to speak of, and we also had a ton of development this week. Starting with our superstar receiver, Hollywood Brown. We've tried to evolve him even more than we did a season ago, and he's done well, and today, he improved in his awareness, catching, deep route running, and release. We then flipped to the defensive side with the reigning Defensive Rookie of the Year, B.J. Ojulari, and he is a true threat to get home on every single snap, and he continued to improve his awareness, finesse moves, and man coverage. We then moved back into the secondary with our free safety, Jalen Thompson. He is such a perfect complement to Budda Baker, coming off that pick 6 in the last game, and today, he improved in his awareness, play rec, and zone coverage. And last but not least, we have our number 2 overall pick, Michael Allison. Following a dominant 3-sack performance in his debut, and another in week 2, he further developed his awareness, block shedding, power moves, and tackling. And with that, we have discussed everything we have needed to for this week. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn those notifications down below, and I will see you all next time as we have our Super Bowl rematch as we take on the Chiefs.